floating started in sort of the 1950s. And the idea at that point was if you turn off all the stimulus to the brain, the body, your consciousness will fall asleep. So they're essentially doing consciousness research. And so what they found is you're not falling asleep necessarily. You're kind of entering into this different transcendental state.
You are listening to The Dr. Haley Show, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your health. Each episode, there will be an interview or a message to help you discover better health. We will be featuring health radicals on the show to bring new ideas to the table, as well as doubling down on key fundamentals to support you living your best life. Your host is no other than the founder of Haley Nutrition, Dr. Michael Haley.
This is the Dr. Haley Show podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Haley, show host. And, in this podcast, we like to explore some unique areas of health and wellness and fitness and mental health and all kinds of exciting things like that. And today's guest is Nick Janicki. He's founder of more than 50 wellness franchises, now leading the next wave of longevity by integrating float therapy, ketamine, and advanced wellness therapies. Some interesting things we're going to get into. Nick, thank you for joining me on the Dr. Haley Show podcast. I know that you're a successful entrepreneur and you've got all these franchises all over the place and they're doing great and everything. I can respect that. And there's probably people that are hearing this that, might even want to get into the wellness business. But ultimately, a business can't be successful if it's not providing a service or a product that people really, really love. So I want to focus on that today. Focus on the product, the service that the people might want to experience that are listening. Sound good?
That sounds great.
And what caught my attention was the float therapy, because I remember someone got me a gift certificate for a float session, and darn it, I never used it, and I wish I did. And at the time, it just kind of seemed different, weird, and unusual. And I'm probably missing out. When did you discover float therapy?
Yeah, so my first float was in 2008. It was after watching a Joe Rogan video about the experience. So Joe Rogan at that time had a Samadhi tank. So Samadhi was one of the first manufacturers. If you're not familiar, floating started in sort of the 1950s with John C. Lilly. And the idea at that point was if you turn off all the stimulus to the brain, the body, your consciousness will fall asleep. So they're essentially doing consciousness research. And so what they found is you're not falling asleep necessarily. You're kind of entering into this different transcendental state. We now know that it's possible to get into a waking delta state during the float, which essentially used to be a paradox. So waking delta was associated with psychedelics and exclusively deep sleep, where you're not waking, as well as deep meditative states. So it's a fascinating experience. I tried it in 2008, opened our first spa February 2010, and was just kind of blown away by some of the responses we were getting from people trying it out.
Well, I would imagine it'd be pretty comfortable and relaxing and an enjoyable experience. I don't know if the first time I'm going to enter any unique state, because I might be, taken by the new experience and maybe too aware. Does that happen?
Oh, that's accurate. Absolutely. So, if you haven't done it, it can be odd because you're floating on water. After about 20 to 40 minutes, you really can't feel the distinction between your body and the water. So it's just a very, very unique state. So this is where people with chronic pain, we have countless stories. We've floated over 1 million people in the last 15 years. And so we just have hundreds of thousands of incredible reviews on chronic pain, anxiety, depression, all kinds of stuff. But it's just a very unique state. For me, when I get in now, my stress just kind of melts away. You forget about your body. Sometimes you go into this deep thought bubble. Sometimes you'll maybe have some visuals and you just come out and you just feel better.
Yeah, I could imagine it as a chiropractor. A lot of times I tell people, get in the swimming pool and do your exercises where you're weightless and, allow your joints to kind of open up, and you'll be able to actually, because the weight bearing, compressing the spine and they're all flared up. I might adjust them. They're on the table. They're in an anti-gravity position, but as soon as they get back up, everything's compressed again and things
Absolutely.
start to hurt.
Have you
So
heard
I
of
know
the
from
Watsu massage? Have you familiar with that? The water-based massaging?
uh,
You've never seen that?
well, I've seen like water tables where you're on water, but there's a layer of material and there's jets underneath. Is that what that
Oh,
is?
interesting. So no, this is typically done in a pool. I think it's called Watsu therapy, and they'll have someone that basically is floating on the surface of the water, and then they're manipulating their body, right? So to your point, you're letting gravity, you're sort of diminishing the effects of gravity, and then doing stretching and or an adjustment and or a massage kind of thing. So
Okay.
that's the concept. But I mean, this is very similar to the Dead Sea in buoyancy, right? So if you haven't tried floating, the Dead Sea is about 30% salt salinity to water volume, and this is even a little bit more. So it's basically
Really?
1,000 pounds, Dr. Haley, of magnesium sulfate and 200 gallons of water. So when you're looking into a pod with just the salt comes to almost the top, like it's 9 inches of salt. You then mix it with water, and it turns into this saline solution. So it's not really water at that point.
Right.
So it's a unique solution for sure.
Yeah, and being a swimmer, I used to enjoy floating, but my body at the time was more dense than it is now. And I'd be lucky just to keep this much of my face, above the water. How much more buoyant are you when you're in thousands of pounds of salt water?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to see, what other questions you have about the therapy. Where are you located? I'd be curious to see if we could get you in at some point.
Well, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And
Okay.
which brings up another question. Where are your franchises?
We're in 22 states, so we have some in Florida as well. So we have 54 locations in 22 states. We're definitely the fastest growing, the largest float franchise in the world. And then to your point, our goal here is to say, okay, what are some of the health trends in the world? Everything is becoming more expensive. How do we make this accessible to all and not scary? So it still has a weird stigma. So I started this 15 years ago, and at that time, everyone was claustrophobic, by the way. So people would walk by and see the pod and kind of go, "Oh, I'm claustrophobic." And what we found is that that's really about control. So you're in full control of the experience.
Hmm.
You can keep the lights on, you can keep the music on, you can open the door. So you're never going to be trapped in there, number one. But there's really nothing to lose other than your anxiety, your pain, and your depression. So it's a great experience.
All right, and when you're talking about open the door, this thing kind of looks like a little spaceship that's full of the more than 30% salt water. And there's a big, almost like, if you can imagine a car where the top lifts up and you climb in through the
It's like
top. It
a
almost
space shuttle clam shell. Yeah.
now, and you're suggesting that you can actually leave it open if you were claustrophobic.
Absolutely. You could definitely leave the door open, leave it cracked. It could create a little bit of a draft. So we
Hmm,
recommend kind of just putting a towel there and just kind of leaving a crack.
I
And then
see.
the room lights are going to go off and you're going to have control over the room environment. But for us, I designed a round pod that has almost perfect sound resonance. So the idea here is, hey, is it possible to replicate a crystal quartz bowl in a technological environment? Right. So the experiment was, can we create an almost perfect sound resonance device where we now have 4 sonar transducers that are mounted to the pod and a bass? So the idea is, if you play music in there, you can literally feel your spine vibrating. Like you can feel your bones vibrating. It's just an extremely cool experience. So the whole idea with sensory deprivation is you do not have light or music. But the whole idea for new clients is, okay, it takes a while. Like now doing this for 15 years, I would say about 50% of our clients do like music,
Hmm.
and that actually relaxes them more than the silence would. So I think a lot of people come in, they can't quiet their mind, and then they get frustrated, right? So I say the environment basically meditates you. So you don't need a meditation background. The environment's going to do that for you. But then just be okay, right, with your thoughts. You don't have to be a Zen Buddhist monk, right from float number one, right? And so to your point, the first float's a little weird and it's going to take you a minute. What we found is the magic float happens between 3 and 6 floats. And then that's when you start going, oh, wow, this is actually something I could keep doing. This is great for my anxiety, depression. Dr. Justin Feinstein has done a ton of research. He's trying to get this pushed through the FDA, where in studies, this works better than benzos and other antidepressants for an hour float. So an hour float with the lights on is equivalent to an anti-anxiety medication and lasts for up to 48 hours. If you turn the lights off, it's equivalent to an antidepressant that lasts for up to 48 hours. And so he has those studies available on his website, but it's just fascinating.
That is fascinating. Is anyone bringing this into their own homes, or is it strictly in the franchise setting?
Sure. I mean, there are people who have these in their homes. Obviously, you need a special environment. We don't sell the pods into the house. We just are focused on the franchising. I've had one in my house. Bluntly, it's kind of a pain. The salt is crazy. I mean, it's literally like living next to the ocean, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to damage your room.
Oh,
You really need a good build out to house these things.
how often do you have to change the salt water?
Yeah, good question. So the saltwater acts sort of like a saltwater aquarium would, in that you're not changing the water, it's going through a filtration process. So a standard pool usually filters the volume of water once per day. We're filtering the volume of water 2+ times in between every client. And so the idea here is the water is passing through a filter membrane. We're adding hydrogen peroxide, the salt salinity to water volume. Anything above 10% salt salinity will implode the cell wall of any anaerobic organism. So
Hmm.
most any organism that can hurt a human being is going to be destroyed by the salt environment regardless. But then we put that through an extremely good filter process, add hydrogen peroxide and other cleaning modalities.
Yeah. What's the temperature when you get in?
Good question. So the temperature you're searching for is the exact skin temperature, not necessarily your body temperature. So you're looking to emulate the skin temperature, and then that's what we found has tricks the brain basically
Hmm.
in being able to not determine where does your body end and where does the water begin. So it's about 92.5, 93 ish, right around there. And then we have that salt volume, at about 35%.
You enjoying the show thus far? One of the many health secrets that we have covered on the show is all around aloe vera, specifically drinking raw aloe vera. Our aloe vera has helped our customers effectively heal their gut, increase their intestine health, lower inflammation in the body, eliminate and/or decrease acid reflux, have glowing skin and hair, and so much more. Now, as a frequent member of our audience, you will be exposed to exclusive specials and coupon codes for the awesome products manufactured by Haley Nutrition. That's right, for simply being awesome and tuning in, you can get a mini discount to help you optimize and better your health. To see how we can help and support you on your health journey, tune into the episodes and listen for coupon codes that you can use at www.haleynutrition.com before you make your orders of raw aloe vera. Once again, it's www.haleynutrition.com. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, when you go to a place and you're going to get a float treatment, typically how many pods do they have at a float center?
Yeah, good question. Most centers with True Rest have 4 to 6. We're now entering into the state where we're really trying to get into longevity and wellness as well. So we now have the Vitality Suite being launched in 15 locations, and this has hot, cold, red light, right? So the idea is now your memberships can be used for not only the floating, but also for the Vitality Suite. We're researching bringing on a medical director to start integrating ketamine and potentially psilocybin in Colorado as well. So we really want to be one of the first centers that has a really good protocol for journey work.
Yeah. Now, is ketamine legal in all states?
Good question. I don't know if it's legal in all states. Right now, we're starting with Ohio. There's 20 states we're looking at right now. And we're doing that through Dr. Tim Scott and Dr. Sean Stansberry, who are basically our medical directors. So that's kind of a partnership with them. They're using their telemedicine company to integrate and help us through that process.
Yeah, and I know that they use that for pain control and things like that in very small amounts. Um, You mentioned psilocybin in Colorado. Is that legality reasons there, where specifically Colorado is the state that allows it?
Correct. Right now, Colorado and Oregon have opened it up. I think Colorado is actually recreational use and for medical use. New Mexico, the governor just signed a bill allowing it for medical use, and that's a 2.5 year process.
Okay.
And then, Arizona is not far behind, and there's some other states that are starting to integrate it from a medical standpoint.
All right. And Nick, for the people listening, what is psilocybin and what are the
Oh,
benefits?
okay, so psilocybin is it's basically magic mushrooms, right? So everyone's heard of magic mushrooms. On If you've ever watched the Smurfs, they have the variety of magic mushroom you don't really want. There's more toxicity in the red ones with the little white dots, right? But that's what everyone thinks of when they think of magic mushrooms. But there are a ton of varieties. Psilocybin has had a ton of research in Europe specific to ADHD, depression, any kind of anxiety disorders. And so that research, I'm happy, is kind of beginning again in the United States. And so I think it has a lot of use specific for, I mean, look, the society that we're in is getting more and more crazy, right? So there's no shortage of anxiety and depression. I think
Yeah.
there's some statistic that upwards of 10% of all US population is on some sort of antidepressant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea here is, okay, can we have an environment that's safe, that you can go and do these therapies, then you could transition to floating, which is, inherently safe, and really focus on the mental fitness or mental health. I prefer the word mental fitness. I'm kind of leaning into that one. Because it's, just like dieting or working out, where it takes time to get your mind right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mental fitness versus mental health. Yeah, it's almost like mental health implies that, maybe there's a problem, where mental fitness to me sounds like I'm training my brain.
Correct. Correct. And I think that's the distinction. And so I think that's what we want to lean into. I work out 3-4 days a week. Oddly, I'm now getting more into longevity approaching 50 than I was in my 30s. So I'm in better shape at 47 than I was at 37. So I think it's an interesting trend that's emerging where people are understanding, hey, we can live longer, but why? I think the goal is with Brian Johnson's Don't Die movement. I always go, don't die. Okay, great. But remember why. Why are we living longer? Why are we becoming happier? Why are we, becoming more mentally productive? All those things. So that's my key is, okay, these are great places for you to sort of heal some of that trauma, get rid of chronic pain, anxiety. But then what we'll find is someone will come in for anxiety 6, 7, 8 floats later. They're a different person. Their eyes are different. And now they are starting to understand, okay, wait a minute. Now I can focus on my purpose and my why, not just feeling better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So we talked about ketamine. We talked about psilocybin. Very, very briefly, you mentioned red light therapy. Are we doing like full body red light therapy in some of these centers, or how does that work?
We are. So we're doing full body red light. So the Vitality Suite is a private room that you can book yourself or with a guest that you know. So we wanted to keep these private. A lot of these centers that are coming out are sort of, it's a la carte and it's just a big room. You don't always know who's there. So we wanted to really keep this sort of luxury spa environment. So you book the room. You then go through a 45-minute session where you're doing contrast therapy and red light. So you would do the sauna, the cold plunge, maybe the sauna again, the cold plunge at the end. So there's different benefits based on the order. So if you end with cold plunge, you're typically going to feel a little more energized. Or if you end with the heat, you might actually feel sleepy. So depending on kind of what your goal is, we have it there. The full body red light I love. I do that about 3 times a week. Long-term benefits, 3 to 6 months, you'll start seeing some potential collagen reduction, or collagen increase, excuse me. It helps at a cellular level with the mitochondria. It helps with inflammation. Red light's great, and then you combine that with the sauna and the cold plunge. I think there's a lot of great benefits. And then if people choose not to do the cold plunge, there's reasons you wouldn't want to do it from a parasympathetic, sympathetic perspective. It's not necessarily good for everyone. But yeah, it's just it's a great combo to be able to do it
Yeah, I've
together.
been cold plunging and I'm definitely seeing the benefits of that, even though I'm not sure what they are, oddly. Something's telling me it's good for me. I feel amazing, when I get out, and somehow I feel empowered. I don't really understand the benefits. I just know that it's good and I know that it's doing something. I want the red light therapy,
Yep.
and I definitely want to experience the float. For me, I don't know about the psilocybin, trip experience or anything like that. I understand that for those that are fearful of it, as I am a little bit, there's like guided experiences. How does that work?
Yeah, and I think that's the key is really understanding as these become more legal, as psychedelics become more legal, you're going to have a slew of people doing it with no protocol and no guidance whatsoever. So our goal is to sort of offer something in a commercial setting under doctor supervision, under a medical protocol where we say, hey, we're going to have you do 2 coaching sessions, then some vitality suite, maybe a float. We're going to have you do this thing called Sound Self. So we've partnered with this company called Sound Self, where they do sound and light integrations as part of these journeys. And it just sort of, helps you kind of get into it a little bit. And so we're designing a protocol where now you're fundamentally understanding why you're there, what it's going to help with, what's the underlying trauma that you're looking to resolve, or the pain, or whatever it might be, and then guide you through it. So that's why we're doing this. Is I think as these become more readily available, there's going to be a lot of positives, but to your point, a lot of negatives. You're going to have a lot of people that aren't prepared for what the experience is going to show them, or it's pretty intense stuff. So I don't know if you've ever done psychedelics, but they're not something to do casually. These are powerful, powerful tools.
So I have kids, so I haven't done anything that I admit
Okay,
publicly.
Pre-kids, nothing.
Well, nothing that I would admit publicly that they might listen to.
Perfect. But yeah, they're powerful tools, right? So the idea is as these become legal and readily available, you're going to have a ton of people doing them without guidance, without the right protocols. So our goal is to kind of step in and say, hey, there's now a place to do this. You know how much you're getting, you know what you're getting, and we can control the experience. It's not just your buddy, here's a random cookie, eat, I don't know, half to the entire tray of cookies and let's see what happens,
Yeah, I'm not gonna reveal any secrets about whether or not I've ever experienced psilocybin mushrooms, but I will tell you that there was a season where I was afraid to eat pizza with mushrooms on it.
That's funny.
Yeah, and someone that maybe is afraid to eat mushrooms that used to love them maybe didn't have the right guided experience.
That's right. They just need to be sauteed on the pizza and you're good.
So I have questions about the equipment, but at this point, if someone was interested from a franchise perspective, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is to just go to truerestfranchising.com. And then all the information's on there. You could fill out a form. We are looking to grow. So we have, like I said, just over 50 open. We have 80 sold. And my goal is to get to about 250 or so within the next 5-6 years. And then potentially start opening this up internationally as well. So kind of curious to start partnering with people that potentially want to, open up a region or a new country.
And how are the franchises supported in the sense of if someone wanted to find that service, where would they go that would be directed to a franchise?
Sure. So truerest.com, TRUEREST, has all of our locations available. There's a map. You can just kind of choose your closest. Usually they offer kind of a first person discount, things like that. They're all obviously individually owned and operated, but I think we do a really great job of onboarding people that are super mission aligned, super passionate. All the facilities are usually upkept really, really, really well. And our goal is to become the luxury provider of this service, not necessarily the cheapest, but the goal is to really just provide, an outstanding service.
Yeah. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. During the month of June 2025, get $10 off your purchase of $100 or more at HaleyNutrition.com. The coupon code is June 2025. That's JUNE 2025. You can use this coupon with on sale and already discounted bundled items. Enjoy the rest of the show. All right, now from a more equipment focused perspective, who's manufacturing the float pods?
Great question. So since inception, we've gone through various manufacturers. So if you go into our spas, there's, I think, upwards of 4 different manufacturers, bunch of different filters. I mean, it's really interesting. Every city, honestly, every municipality has their own guidance on how and what is needed for equipment. So we're basically custom making these by municipality. Some have filters next to the pod, some have filters in an adjacent room, some have 2 pumps, some have 1 pump. So, the equipment is kind of custom made for the municipalities, specific requirements.
Now, is it the same when it comes to, say, cold plunges? They might have cold plunges from a different manufacturer. It's not
Correct.
necessarily,
Yes. So
our franchises use this brand.
That is 100% correct. It's we try to streamline things, of course, but yeah, there are people using different brands for sure for equipment.
And red light therapy.
Red light, right now we're primarily using Mito Red, MITO Red. We really like the full panels. They're super powerful. They have a good nanometer range. I think they're 590 to whatever the range is, 880 or something. And the lower ranges really help with the skin specifically. So close up, like I said, the collagen production, reduction of fine wrinkles, things like that, I think are really good. And so we're thus far, we're happy with this manufacturer.
Okay. Now, what other therapies are being offered in these franchises that we haven't talked about?
I think that's it. We also, most of them have oxygen bars. So the oxygen bar is usually used at the end of the float as just sort of an upper. So just getting that increased oxygen, and we're at a point where I'm really researching what therapies make sense. So I think H-spot or hyperbaric chambers, which is where you concentrate the air up to, a safe level, which is maybe 2 atmospheres, and then you're breathing in 100% oxygen. Incredible medical research has been done on that. I mean, they are very expensive. I think the general public doesn't necessarily know about them. So we may experiment with that at some locations, but they're big, they're bulky, and they're very expensive. So, that's something where I just underwent stem cell surgery. So I had my own bone marrow extracted from my hip. So both my parents had hip replacements in their 50s. So my cartilage was getting down to, 20, 30%. I was at 3.5 out of pain for 3 years and just went, for God's sakes, like I'm a healthy, young-ish guy. There has to be another way. So I went to, I think he's a naturopathic or osteopathic, I think naturopathic doctor. And, this was just local in Gilbert, Arizona. And they extracted 200 milliliters of bone marrow. It was a 6-hour procedure. I was under for 6 hours. They then injected the stem cells into the femoral head and then the bone connecting into the joint, and then 10 other sites around it. I was non-weight bearing for 5 days and then partial weight bearing for 5 additional days. I'm now 7 weeks post-operation, have a 0 out of 10 in pain, almost full range of motion is back. It's miraculous. It's incredible.
Fascinating.
And so I'm also taking peptides and other supplements to support it, but hyperbaric was one of the treatments recommended, as research is showing it can double the lifespan of stem cells in the system. So, it's really fascinating kind of getting into the longevity space.
It is. I'm actually sort of in it myself, and I, along the lines of stem cells, just learned something about the product I sell. Didn't even know this. We've been helping people with other issues But I recently found out that aloe vera actually kind of stimulates your body to release and use more of your stem cells. I didn't know that. I found it on another podcast with Dr. Lewis, who I ran into. He did research on aloe vera at the University of Miami years ago. And I had him on my podcast, and now he has an aloe product. And that was actually one of the reasons why he found his research to be successful in helping people reverse dementia and Alzheimer's
Hmm.
with aloe vera through the stem cell
Interesting.
mechanism.
So, and the stem cells was the active proponent of that reversal?
Yes, yeah, and replacing literally nerve tissues, which,
Wow.
when it comes to nerves healing, they heal. People heal from brain damage, and theoretically, someone that's paralyzed could grow a whole new spine. But the nerves regenerate at such a slow speed, we consider it to be non existent. But if you could lay down new stem cells and grow things, replacement tissue better and faster, and apparently that's what's happening. So neat stuff. We know this much, and it's just
I
expanding.
was an experiment. I'll be honest. I mean, I have a ton of friends and family that were kind of going, okay, well, you can be the experiment here. And where in Mexico are you going? And I was like, no, I'm down the street. This is legal now. You can actually get your own, do a liposuction, get your own fat cells stored. In 3 months, they'll grow your own stem cells, and then you can ship them back to yourself.
Wild. When I graduated chiropractic school in 1995, I don't think I had heard of stem cells yet.
No, right. It went from, you sort of heard about it. It was controversial with how they obtained it. And now they're going, oh yeah, just come in and, you'll walk out same day with your own stem cells processed and re-injected, your own biomass. I mean, it's pretty interesting. And it wasn't
Yeah.
wildly expensive either, which is just fascinating. Of course, it's not covered by insurance, but
Yeah.
as most, regenerative medicine isn't. So, but I think in the next 5, 10 years, that's going to be a fairly easy and obvious operation to have for degenerated tissues and bone issues, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What therapies have you considered for your franchises that didn't make the cut?
That didn't make the cut? What can you define that?
Well, there's all kinds of different natural alternative type therapies for instance, you do red light. There's also blue light therapy. There's all kinds of manual treatment therapies from trigger points and deep tissue work. I am wondering, because in this space where there are so many up and coming treatments and therapies, I never heard of cold plunge until maybe 10 years ago.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Red light therapy is relatively new. A lot of the things that we're doing now didn't exist when I grew up.
Same. Well, the funny thing about the cold is cryo kind of had an up and coming moment, maybe 7, 8 years ago. And then it seems to have been replaced by cold plunge, which is pretty fascinating. So you went from cryo to cold plunge almost. But yeah, I mean, we're constantly researching new therapies. Our goal with True Rest is to make things easy. And so the idea would be we're staying away from a lot of the manual therapies. We've tried things like massage, and it just honestly becomes a scheduling nightmare a lot of times. And you already have a lot of brands doing massage, and they do it very, very well. So that's a space we don't necessarily want to compete in. I think our goal is to really innovate and say, okay, how can we use technology and integrate it with our existing centers? And so the Vitality Suite is easy because we can use an existing pod room. So for centers that have 6 pods, 7 pods, and aren't at full occupancy, we just switch out a room for the Vitality Suite. So our goal is to make every square foot as profitable as possible. Is sort of how we think about it. So I'm personally fascinated with sound and frequency. So the goal with the pod was, what are things we could stack into something you're already doing that then enhance the experience? So right now we're kind of playing with a company called Lucid AI, where their music can be dynamically changed during the float session. So rather than going in and saying, hey, I want to play Led Zeppelin or, Dark Side of the Moon in my pod, you say, here's how I feel right now. Here's how I want to feel when I'm done. And a custom track's going to be made just for you. And eventually we're going to get to a point where, I'm wearing a Whoop as an example, where your Whoop is now the eyes on the experience and can see, okay, Dr. Haley is now entering into a theta state. I'm going to play these tones or frequencies or songs. Oh, now he's in a delta state. Now, how do I keep him there? Right. And then now, how do I go to silence and keep him in the silence while keeping him in that state? And so the idea is to continually adjust your feedback loop so then you're in the most relaxed state. So that's the kind of stuff we're kind of working on right now, which is using AI for good, basically, or using technology for good. I almost don't like to use the word AI. It just becomes so polluted. But yeah, the idea is instead of using it for manipulation, how do we use it for comprehension and analysis to actually get to better states?
When you're floating, are your ear holes above water?
Your ear holes are underwater. We recommend putting in specialized earplugs so water doesn't get in the eardrum because it can crystallize. If you forget to rinse out your ears, that's one of the bigger complaints. Water can crystallize on the eardrum. It's easy to get rid of, but it can just kind of give you a little bit of an earache, but it's just the salt drying.
All right. Yeah. And I was thinking of it more from a sound perspective. If you were one of the people that wanted to hear therapeutic music while you were floating.
Oddly, it goes just fine through the water and the earplugs because it's just such a controlled and monitored environment.
Wow. Well, I feel like I learned a lot and definitely want to experience and find a location near me. So
Amazing.
I'll have links for anyone else that's thinking the same thing. I'll have links in the description of the video and on the podcast page where you might have to copy and paste to visit that link. But I'll make sure it's available, the resources that were mentioned by Nick. And is there anything that I left out that you wish I had asked or that is important to this discussion?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered most everything. I think the key for us is just, we want these places to be respites for peace, right? And healing. And so our goal is to kind of grow this. And I think as technology gets more invasive, you just need a place to go where you can actually just relax and unwind. So I think that's great. Thank you so much for the questions.
Excellent. Thanks. I enjoyed this, Nick. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Ditto.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today on The Dr. Haley Show. Make sure to hit subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this. If this episode made you think of someone, go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this exact episode with them. You can catch the show notes for this episode on www.drhaley.com. If you want to geek out with Dr. Michael Haley on other radical health topics, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, where he posts exclusive video content. All the details are at www.drhaley.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you on the next episode.